Carnage car news. First, we're going to talk about highlight story today, and we're talking about how only the stupidest are actually signing up to buy these new trucks. We're also going to talk about Nissan sales, how they're tanking, and how they're actually stopping production on a couple of very popular models. Is Volkswagen going out of business? They can't sell a vehicle, their workers are out of work, and they're closing factories. Definitely check that out. Let's also talk about Stellantis shutting down production of these Jeeps because of poor sales. And we're going to cap off with how the economy is crumbling and the car market is screaming, freaking out. Let's take this right from the top. Everybody knows with the truck market how things have been going, getting off the rails. Prices have been rising at an alarming rate. Since 2022, we've seen prices go through the roof. But unfortunately, the quality and reliability and durability of these vehicles isn't following in line with the price of these vehicles. We talk about multiple vehicles. From Toyota, we're seeing their lots almost empty. Now they're starting to fill up lots. We're also seeing some of the other big three. Chevy, Ram, as well as Ford. Have you seen prices of these brand new Chevy trucks? We know prices have been jacked up 30, 40, 50% in the last 3 to 4 years, and yet sales are up. Have you heard GM's latest reports, Q2 of 2024, and they're seeing a 10% increase. That's right, 267,000 deliveries of new trucks. People are buying them, and even though they're grossly overpaying, people are digging deep in their wallets to dig out and buy those new vehicles. What does it possibly take for people to understand they're grossly overpaying for some of these trucks? That's right, Ford sales of their full-size trucks, SUVs, are up. Remember a year ago we were talking about how they were down in the tank, actually a few short months ago, and that was happening, and I think a lot of that was sticker shock. But Ford is actually up 13.4% this August over the year before. Sales are up, people are buying. Who's buying? I can't afford this, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are struggling to dig down deep into their wallets and buy one of these expensive new trucks. So it's mind-blowing to me what's going on in the truck market. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out if you pay over sticker this time and the next time, that by the third time, the dealers are going to hold you to it. This is what's going on both with Chevy, but now we're also seeing the increased sales with GM Chevy products, and Ford sales have been going through the roof. Even with the increased pricing, we're seeing the F-150 sales going up. We're seeing even the Raptors going up. We're even seeing the Rangers going up to a price now where yesterday's F-150 full-size trucks were going. And even the smaller Mavericks are going up in price at an alarming rate. Who can even afford these trucks? A Maverick for $50,000 Canadian? Who would have thought? That's a $20,000 truck, or at least that's the way Ford was pitching it when it first came out. But Ford sales are clearly on the upslide. Why? Not sure, but people are buying them. But it doesn't just begin and end there. While we're seeing increased sales in Ford, GM, Chevy pickup trucks, and even Toyota selling almost everything that they put on the market, we're not seeing the same thing with Stellantis and Ram, and we know the CEO Tavares is in hot water. He's not selling a lot of the vehicles. He's clearly taking another direction, and a lot of the North American buyers just aren't getting on board, and the Ram pickup trucks aren't selling. With days supply exceeding 130, 140, 150 days supply, it would take them that long if they stop production today to sell each and every vehicle on the lot. Ram trucks aren't selling. A lot of it has to do with obviously the high prices. A lot of it has to do with them saying they're going up market. And the bottom line is a lot of people just aren't getting in the same page. They're not on the same page as Stellantis trying to promote their products as a higher end vehicle. We know 10, 12 years ago, Stellantis and Ram products were considered the third alternative. Most people wanted a truck, you'd go Ford, you'd go Chevy. And Ram was sort of that third low-cost alternative. But now, Ram trucks are through the roof in terms of pricing. $92,800, $93,000 out the door, you're $100,000 with taxes and extras. I'll tell you right now, it doesn't seem like Ram's learned anything or any lessons from their losses. The fact that they're not selling trucks, even now with the fact that their competitors, GM and Ford, are selling trucks, they're seeing record profits, 10, 13%. We're not seeing it over on the Ram side. Ram still continues to struggle selling vehicles, even with some of the big incentives. And with the days supply of inventory across the board, the industry average about 68 days supply. They're actually saying Rams are much worse. It's ridiculous. On top of it, the quality's not there, and even make matters worse, we're seeing their reliability issues, tip-on problems. We're seeing transmission issues. We're seeing engine troubles with the 5.7 Hemi, and those are blowing apart.
Top end, they're not getting the proper oiling and they're failing at an alarming rate. You hear the infamous Hemi tick? Yes, that's not uncommon for these Hemi trucks. It's a sad state of affair. Now they're finally, in 2025, getting rid of all of their V8 engines and they're replacing it with this new Hurricane turbocharged inline six. To make matters worse, customers even don't want anything like that. They want that good old-fashioned V8 American muscle, and Tavares and Stellantis are not listening to the consumer. Why do you think sales are down for Ram? The only of the big three that can't sell a pickup truck to save their life? That's what's going on. Everybody is getting on to what's going on with Nissan. Sadly, Nissan has had some struggles.
When we saw the first half of 2024, Nissan had said and reported that they were down 99% of their profits. Back in May, we heard that dealers were being told by the manufacturer that they just should sell the cars at a loss. Would you believe BYD even overtook Honda and Nissan in terms of overall sales, and they're not even selling cars in North America? And even with products like the 2025 Nissan Leaf repriced at a small sticker price of $25,000 and change, they still can't sell vehicles. What's going on at Nissan?
They've lacked ingenuity, they've lacked creativity, innovation. They're one of the few manufacturers that does not have a plug-in hybrid option, while all of the other competitors from Toyota, Mazda, and virtually every other brand is coming up with options to get on board with hybrids and plug-in hybrid vehicles, and Nissan's not doing that. To make matters worse, they're getting rid of and decommissioning great vehicles like the GTR. There's no promise of anything interesting coming out there. To make matters ultimately worse, I put that cherry on the top of this disgusting, smelly, mold-infested cake. What we're having is the infamous CVT. That's right, everybody. The continuously variable transmission is one in which that everybody loves to hate. It's one of the most infamously or famously unreliable transmissions known to automotive kind. Yes, it's that belts, that pulleys, the Jatco system that is absolutely catastrophically failing at the drop of a hat. But this is sad what's going on with Nissan. They're giving it up. Reliability's not there. With the transmissions that they're putting in almost every one of their smaller cars and SUVs, customers are starting to catch on. They know that it's going to be a $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 bill if they have to replace a transmission, and they will. And that's the sad reality. Some of their engines, while they share some great drivetrains, I would say there's a very few select models that are actually the types of vehicles that you would want to own. The Titan, unfortunately, going bye-bye. V8 torque converter auto, not a bad truck, but they've had their issues. I would say the Frontier now with that 3.8 liter V6 naturally aspirated torque converter 9-speed automatic transmission is probably one of your best bets in the Nissan group of vehicles right now. And now, especially with Toyota going with their turbocharged 4-cylinder engine in their new little Tacoma, this represents a great alternative. Now, the sad reality is we're hearing some rumblings at Nissan and they're going to be halting the production of a couple of key of their models. Yes, unfortunately, two very popular models, while they've seen some sales growth in the new Nissan Frontier at 7 and change percent since last year, it's just not enough. They've come up, but they're still not selling the numbers that they want to sell. On top of it, the Nissan Rogue, which is one of the best-selling vehicles in their fleet, is down on sales by 4 or 5%. It's a sad state of affairs. And because of these poor sales, too many dealer networks, there's clearly just too many dealers. And the fact that they've lost up to the first half of 2024, 99% of their profits they were giving away to customers on incentives, whether it was, obviously interest rates, or whether it was a matter of just giving them dollars off or cash back, or they were even giving money to the salespeople for additional incentives to sell some of the existing product. The fact is, up to the middle of 2024, Nissan has virtually given away 99% or almost all of their profits just to move the product line. In which case, sadly enough, it's just not enough. Nissan's looking at selling off some of their smaller losing profit type dealerships because they have way too many dealers in their network. And they're looking at maybe rationing the sales to some of their more popular, larger dealerships that have a better reputation for moving product and making money for the brand. The future's not so bright for Nissan. Their products aren't selling. They're not popular. The reliability has been a challenge with the CVT transmission, and I'm not sure what the future has in store for Nissan. Is Volkswagen going out of business? Have you heard what's been going on? With sales dropping off a cliff, they can't sell many Audis, they can't sell many Porsches, and they certainly aren't selling many Volkswagens, all part of the VAG group, Volkswagen Audi group. And sadly enough, Volkswagen's got some new challenges. Of course, the CEO, who was part of that whole Dieselgate scandal, is pulling back into the courts. He's having to answer to some of the hard and very difficult questions as to why, how, what was going on? Yes, they were fibbing on some of their emissions numbers. They were putting in a software to simulate better results than they were actually getting on some of their diesel pollutants. Yes, that's right. Volkswagen had some of the best diesel engines, or at least from a performance standpoint, that weren't related directly to CO2 or carbon emissions. But unfortunately, now that's wreaking havoc with the old CEO. And on top of it, Volkswagen has put a lot of money and investment in a lot of their electrification. And sadly, those vehicles aren't selling. The ID4, the ID Buzz, none of these ID vehicles of electrified Volkswagen products are selling very well. Volkswagen's trying more damage control. And while they're one of the largest world's manufacturers, they're struggling right now to sell a vehicle. CEOs are panicking. The workers are panicking because there's discussions that management wants to ask the workers on the front line to work with them and sort of help them along. We all have skin in this game. They want workers to maybe accept, holdbacks on wage increases, maybe even rollbacks. They want to look at maybe cutting definitely hours, cut back on maybe closing some plants and facilities. They're looking at trying to rejuvenate the organization, and Volkswagen's struggling. Volkswagen executives got together in a meeting recently and discussed that unless they're able to turn around their profit margins, their profitabilities, that they're likely to be closing down almost indefinitely within the next 1 to 2 years. So they're looking for cooperation from the plants, the workers. But unfortunately, now the unions are getting in the way and say, and the workers are the very people that are very much stressed out. They're having to pay for their cost of living crisis, their homes, their cars, they're trying to feed their families. And in the midst of this uncertainty and instability in the market and competitiveness from other outsiders, for example, like from China, mean that Volkswagen is in for some serious hardships coming up. They're trying to make up between 10 and 11 billion dollars. It's a world of hurt, and Volkswagen is in rough shape. Now, this seems to be a common theme here with a lot of these manufacturers, as we heard just about Nissan, but Volkswagen is very much in the same place. High prices, cost of living crisis are all things that are impacting the buyer. And if you abuse the buyer when things are hot, when things are not, the buyers are going to forget all about you. They'll hold dealers and Volkswagens and Nissans and Stellantis and Rams, they'll hold them to a high account. And that's why people are making that choice and not buying Volkswagen products. Now we have Volkswagen put too much investments in products that aren't selling, too much money in some of that ICE development, which unfortunately they have to sell their ICE products at a premium dollar to fund the research and development that goes into the electric marketplace. It's a sad state, and a lot of these manufacturers are finding it very hard to stay afloat in these transitionary times. Have you heard the latest? Stellantis literally ended production of these famous and some of their most popular Jeeps. That's right, the Wrangler and the Grand Cherokee. They halted production. What's going on? Why would they do that when these are clearly some of the most popular and legendary Jeeps in their entire arsenal? Sales are drastically down for Stellantis in general, but a lot of their Jeep products just aren't selling. With the high prices, they've elected to sell to a more upstream marketplace. But yet that upstream market doesn't exist because the very manufactured vehicles that they produce, for example, Jeeps, were initially intended for the middle class. And the middle class can't afford to pay $80,000, $90,000 for a Jeep Wrangler. They can't afford to pay $100,000 for a stepped up version of a Grand Cherokee.
I believe it's limited, or at least my wallet's limited. I can't afford this because the Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited 4x4 2024 going for $74,000. That's beyond me. But
we also can't forget about or ignore some of the quality control challenges that they've seen recently. Have you actually heard? Very recently, Jeep has also announced that they've had some drastic problems. Yes, it's been the reports of 9 separate incidents where the new Wrangler has burned to the ground. That's right, temporarily we saw a halt in production where Jeep actually was held off. Now they are back in production, but Jeep actually had to hold back, or Stellantis, on the output in production because their day supply was increasing at an alarming rate. They couldn't sell the vehicles that they currently have out in the field, so they had to slow down production. As we know, some of the hot topics going on with UAW and the strikes saying, look, we need more support. Our workers are entitled to so much, the pay, the hours, and you promised us that you would build more facilities and increase the staffing. But now we have Stellantis saying, hang on, we can't. We have the Belvedere plant. We have all these things going on, but we can't afford to keep moving forward. We're not selling the products that we have. This on the back of the fact that each of the dealers, they got together in a conglomeration and said, look, to go to headquarters, Stellantis, we can't take all of these allocations. We need you to hold back, take it easy, maybe help us with selling some of the existing product line and be more aggressive, whether it's providing more incentives, which Ram, sadly, is one of the fewest incentivized companies. They're offering less incentives by far than a lot of their competition, and that's been one of the holdbacks for the brand. Sadly enough, we've seen prices for the Wranglers go up through the roof, 40 and 50, 60%. We see Jeep Wranglers now going for as much as 80,000 plus. And then you get into the SRTs and you're well over into the six figures. We're also seeing the Grand Cherokees. Whoever would have thought $80,000, $90,000 Grand Cherokee? Psh, never thought in my days, but this is what's happening. So it's no wonder during the cost of living crisis that people are electing not to buy these products. Hence they're sitting, and day supply are extremely high on the Jeep products. They're up in that 100, 110, 120 day supply. So it's no wonder, because they're not selling, Jeep said there was some retooling or there was some reconfiguration of the production line. Well, we know what it is. They had to send some people home. They had to shut down the plants, turn off the lights, just so they could get caught up and the day supply could start to dwindle down a little bit before they start ramping up supply. There's all kinds of mixed messaging that the consumers are getting, but at the end of the day, consumers know better. Jeeps are not a high quality product, with the tip-em problem, the totally integrated power modules and the electrical challenges, the automatic transmissions. We also know the manual gearboxes, they have a clutch recall that they just can't seem to fix. The Jeep Grand Cherokee, we know some of the rotary knob issues, transmission problems, and the vehicle's inadvertently rolling away or not engaging into neutral or park. There's been a lot of problems with those brands, and sadly, customers are learning it. And that's a big reason why these products aren't selling as fast as Stellantis would like. But a lot of it is boiling down to the price. And prices will speak volumes. That's why, unfortunately, Stellantis is struggling. Jeep was on hold. Temporary production halt. They're back in order. But the future is very grim for the brands from Jeep and Stellantis until we see the prices come down drastically and the quality go up. And another big hot topic, we're talking about the economy is literally collapsing and the car market is screaming about it. Yes, what's going on? Well, thanks to our good friend Brandon over at Car Questions Answered. He got together, we collaborated and talked about some of the key elements that we're seeing in the car market today. Cars are not selling. Trucks are not selling. SUVs are not selling. Well, that's an exaggeration. It's all selling. You look around on the streets and you're seeing brand new vehicles moving around on the streets. But the numbers are telling a lot more story.
But a big part of the reason a lot of these vehicles aren't selling is not just the high prices, because a lot of these manufacturers are now cranking up incentives, making it more palatable for buyers to buy. But it's not just that, it's consumer debt is on an increasing level. Have you heard repossessions of all of these vehicles are going up, up, up? And yes, we're up to about 7 or 8% for non-prime or subprime buyers. And as well, we're seeing significant amounts of repossessions, even for prime buyers and people that could afford it. But unfortunately, because job loss, increased cost of living, and of course taxation increases across the board, means that many people are finding it very difficult to continue making their payments on their very expensive vehicles. And a lot of them are underwater with negative equity, which doesn't help the matter.
But it's really showing that the overall economy, as far as what we're seeing down here in the US, is that people are getting tighter. And the banks are getting tighter too. So dealers are trying to sell these cars to these consumers. And what I'm hearing from a lot of these dealers is they're not able to move metal because the banks are not lending to these consumers. This is a problem that's going to happen. It's going to stretch over a very, very long time, because as inflation stays stubbornly high, car prices stay stubbornly high, consumers are going to be less willing to be able to actually buy these cars. Banks are going to continue to tighten up. Interest rates are not going to lower as quickly as they need to be able to move this metal. And what fixes this car market right now is transactions.
We're seeing vehicles that aren't selling all that well. We're seeing Stellantis, everything, Jeep, Ram, Chrysler, everything Dodge from Stellantis not selling at all. Nissan not selling. Honda selling poorly. Toyota mixed. They're not selling bad, but that's only because they keep the numbers down and it's on-time delivery. The big three pickup trucks, GM, Chevy, Ford, we know that they're selling trucks, but what they're not telling you is a lot of those products are actually sold to fleets, to commercial business. And that's why the sales are as good and up as they are and as they're perceived to be. But the sad reality is the consumer, like you and I, are not buying a lot of these products. We don't have the money for a $90,000 half ton. We don't have the money for a $130,000 diesel truck. We don't have the money for a $55,000 Jeep Compass. That's absolutely ludicrous. It doesn't matter which make or model you're looking at. It seems like almost across the board, the entire automotive industry has gotten out of control. And it all happened since back in 2022 when we saw the interest rates basically drop. We saw them be low. And of course, there was this frenzy, this buying frenzy during the post-pandemic. Everybody wanted to get out and get some new vehicles. But shortly thereafter, interest rates start to go through the roof. Inflation start to climb. We saw the Feds crank up the rates. We saw the Bank of Canada crank up the rates. And now people continued to buy. They were thinking that that was going to curb inflation, but it actually didn't. Now you had people that continually kept buying. Their old habits were dying hard, and people were buying new cars, trucks, SUVs, and most people, there was absolutely ludicrous, people were spending more than these vehicles were worth. These vehicles came with increased high-priced sticker prices, MSRP tags from the dealer, from the manufacturer, and the dealers were playing games with customers. They're tacking on price adjustments and cost adjustments above and beyond sticker price. It wasn't uncommon to find a vehicle that was worth $50,000 on the sticker and then saying, well, we have a shortage here, so we're only accepting $55,000 or $60,000. And these people, they were willing to pay these market adjustment fees, if you will. And it was those very market adjustment fees that drove these prices up. The dealers caught on, said, hey, people can tolerate it, and the market can bear what it will bear. So prices kept creeping up since 22, 23, 24, and you'll see every year, and even 25, some of these brands continually hike on new price adjustments. The manufacturers are taking what they can get, and the buyers seem to be okay with it. But now there's a point, a breaking point. Consumer debt is at an all-time high. Repossessions at an all-time high. People seem to be okay in being negative equity. In other words, owning more than their vehicle is worth according to the bank. This market is catastrophic. Look in the big cities, the price increases on homes. Vancouver, Toronto, New York, well, Miami, maybe not so much, Los Angeles, Seattle, all the big corners have these high prices and people are paying that, or foreign markets are investing, driving prices up. But people keep putting money down. Rent, housing, the cost of food is all going up at an alarming rate, and it's devastating the average American and Canadian household. This is rough times and it's crushing everybody. But the car market is screaming because now what we're seeing is people holding back. Finally, it feels like we've tipped over that point. We're seeing car sales holding back. Car manufacturers not able to make ends meet. Dealers like Nissan going out of business or shutting down smaller dealers. We're seeing a lot of catastrophic failures. Used car prices are going up, but yet there's not enough inventory, so dealers are struggling there to even get product in their inventory. The whole market has gone absolutely ballistic, and we don't know when this is going to end. It seems like customers seem to be okay with that to the point of breaking. They stretch, and then they snap. And that's all over but the crying. Definitely want to hear your ideas about that. Hope you enjoyed that news. Definitely, as always, be back to check on the news one. Hope to see you all real soon. Catch you then. Bye-bye.